welcome and appreciated. So, I'm going to call the Gardner City Council to order. Would invite everybody that's in attendance who would like to stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we're going to start with a presentation this evening to some unsung heroes in the city organization, and that's our friends in the Public Works Department. And you know, they might not be as flashy as some of the other places, but let me tell you something: when you've got snow on your street, or a huge pothole, or your water, your storm water's filled up, your sewer line's leaking, your water line's leaking, they might as well strap on a cape when they come and fix that stuff. And we sure appreciate them. And I'm going to read the following proclamation. Whereas the many services provided by Public Works to our community are an integral part of our citizens' everyday lives, and whereas the support of an understanding and informed citizenry is vital to the efficient operation of public works systems and programs such as water treatment and distribution, sanitary sewer collection and treatment, streets and highways, and stormwater, and whereas the health, safety, economic vitality, and comfort for this community greatly depends on these facilities and services, and whereas the quality and effectiveness of these services, as well as their planning, design, and construction of public facilities and utilities, is vitally dependent upon the efforts and skills of the Public Works representatives, and whereas the efficiency of the qualified and dedicated personnel who staff Public Works departments is materially influenced by the public's attitude and understanding of the importance of the work they perform. Now, therefore, be it resolved, I, Chris Morrow, Mayor, on behalf of the City Council and the City of Gardner, do hereby proclaim the week of May 17th through the 23rd of 2015 National Public Works Week. And I think we owe a round of applause to our Public Works heroes. And Brian, please let your staff know how grateful we are for the work that they do on behalf of the citizens of Gardner.
Thank
you. Next on the agenda is public comments. Members of the public are welcome to use this time to make comments about city matters or items on the agenda that are not part of a public hearing. Anyone interested in making public comments, please step forward, state your name and address for the record, and be heard.
Good evening, Council. My name is Adam Boydston. My address is 17441 South Agnes Street. Here for you tonight to talk to you guys about something that's near and dear to my heart, sidewalks. I spoke with you the past couple council meetings, and this time I've actually got some printouts. You mind if I approach and hand them to you? You okay with that?
Please.
All right, great. As you can see, it's very near to my heart as it's in color. What I've got for you, the first sheet on the top, got set up for you a little bit of an overview, and there's some letters attached. I've broken it down to 4 different segments for sidewalks to connect in the area. The whole point is on the 175th Street, where it splits off from 56, heading west. There are no sidewalks there. It's a very narrow road. It's a very dangerous area, especially for having a school so close in different subdivisions. And the let's see, Tuesday, I met with the Waverly Point HOA, as they had a homeowners association meeting. Very nice group of folks out there, and I asked about their interest on having a sidewalk out there to see if that was something they would support. As you can see on map, second piece, map 2, that would be the yellow area. You can see the different homes and plots on 175th Street. And they were more than interested, as when I found out there's a little wooden bridge, little footbridge, sitting in a ditch. I believe it washed away the other night, but it is back, standing. There is a daycare in that area, and that's where children actually get on the bus. It's a bus stop on 175th Street. So little children accessing that road before school, a very busy road with nowhere really for them to stand or walk. Dangerous area. I just wanted to make that point. What I'm asking is if you break it down on page, let's see, that's the second piece, you can see that section A is about 0.49 miles. I'm guessing asphalt would probably be cheaper than concrete. I'd love to see concrete, it would be great. But if money is an issue, fine. If it comes down to gravel, so be it. Something needs to go there. I'm very encouraged by the fact that I got my bill today for my electric. I will be paying it. But crosswalks are going in, that's great. I think it's good to support pedestrians and youth and make sure that they are safe. However, this area that is in question connects to the high school. So, if you look at section B, there's already sidewalk on Waverly Road. I'd ask that it's approximately 2 blocks worth at 0.26 miles. The concrete would be poured for the sidewalk to connect all the way to 175th Street. Turn to page 3. You can see on section D and section C, if you so choose to put a sidewalk down the rest of 175th Street, you could connect the other 2 developments. And so essentially, these developments, one of which has approximately 256 homes in it, I believe St. John's, what it's called. St. John's Trace, yeah, okay. I've not spoken with their HOA yet, but that will be in the future. I'd ask that you connect them. You can have folks walk downtown. You can have kids actually connected to the street. They can actually walk to school for those that aren't able to be driven. And it'd also be safer for the bus, for the kids to actually be waiting on a sidewalk rather than a footbridge or in the mud when it gets washed away. Clearly there's some infrastructure issues with the drainage. I'm sure that'll need to be addressed as well. But I'm encouraged that you guys are looking at tax, looking at infrastructure. I don't know if that would be included, if it's something you guys could discuss, or if it would need to be added to something. So, I guess what I'm asking for today, please take a look at that. I'm sure you have better maps than I have access to. But I'd like to know, do I need to get, I guess, signatures? If so, in order to get something done, how many houses, doors do I need to knock on? How many signatures am I looking at? So I can start working on that before I come to you guys next. So, any idea? Is that something?
Well,
is there a rule or?
Yeah, Adam, usually public comments is.
Oh, sorry.
Public
I got
comments
you.
does.
Fair enough.
Here's what I do want to say is that if you could leave your email and phone number with the city clerk.
Okay.
I mean, I think this is an item that maybe Public Works staff,
Right.
who, by the way, I called them heroes a little while ago, but they really are, but Public Works staff, we could get them with you, city engineering with you, and we can be talking about this, because one of the things that we will approve as we go through the budget process is the capital improvement plan, and you know, you're certainly generating interest in this section of town, and somebody from administration can probably tell you whether or not a petition would get you more traction.
Fair
Does that
enough.
sound fair?
Fair enough.
And
What is a ballpark figure per foot or per section of to install sidewalk?
Actually, the ballpark figure's about $5 a square foot. And so if you look at a 5 foot wide sidewalk, every foot foot is $5. So if you're looking at 1,000 feet, that's $25,000.
The other concern is, this particular stretch of road is open culvert on both sides. Something's gonna have to be done with that culvert, so that's gonna
Yeah,
add
yeah.
cost.
I know, I don't wanna get too
Yeah.
far, this is something,
Just curious.
make notes for yourselves, let's talk about this
Yeah.
during council updates, but, we wanna try and stick to
Nope.
protocol. But Adam, you do a fine job of making a compelling argument,
Mhm.
and feel
Thank
free to
you.
keep coming.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Adam.
Good evening.
Good evening.
On April 20th, at the meeting, during public comments, which I hope you all take public comments serious, I asked a question, which was why the airport board or commission did not meet in chambers and be recorded, and that so that citizens can hear what's going on. It seems like very far and few in between anything comes to the city council. When it does, there's no backup. And until mysteriously shortly, there hadn't even been meeting minutes online. On the 24th, I hadn't received any kind of communication, I thought maybe from somebody on the council. I wrote the mayor and copied Steve and Todd, Councilman Shute and Winters, and asked, if I could possibly get a response to my question. Here it is, May 18th. I have no response to my question. So I'm just asking that if you're going to say, leave your email with here, or if you're going to take emails, that you take it seriously and respond. The email got on the 24th, Mayor said you were gonna talk with Councilman Shute and Winters that weekend. Haven't heard anything yet. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. Public comments from anyone else? Could I get you to state your name and address?
I'm Christine Miner. I'm here because I rented a home, rented a home here that's riddled with mold. Found out that there's nothing in place to protect us as citizens against mold. The owner of the home just blew it off. We ended up testing it on ourselves. There are at least 6 molds. 3 are toxic and deadly. I was pregnant when I lived there. We were told by the mold company that if we took the baby in there, he would die. And I don't know what steps to take to get things on the books so the city can enforce mold issues.
Okay. I think that we've got mechanisms that can help enforce that. Ryan, you look like you wanted to say something?
Oh, no, I could certainly look at the question. I mean, typically on, rental properties, you address that through your rental licensing code. And, if you obviously get that funding in place for rental licensing inspections and things of that nature to make sure that any rental properties are habitable. But that would be the enforcement mechanism for something of this nature.
Well, and there's habitability, written into to the city code. I know you stated your name, but I would encourage you also, if you can go right over there to Jeannie, the city clerk, and give her your address and contact information. And Brian, I know we haven't approved a new business and economic development director yet. I think you're still holding sway over that department. This sounds pretty serious. You can get with,
I'm familiar with this particular.
okay. Maybe you can give us a little history on that during council updates.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you. Anyone else coming for, okay. We do have somebody else, very good.
I have good news.
Could I get you to state your name and address for the record?
I'm Mary Foley, and my address is 9410 Haskins in Lenexa. I'm not from Gardner, but I am a daughter of the American Revolution, and we're coming back to town.
Okay, fantastic.
So, just want to let you know that we will be celebrating our 125th year on October 11th of this year, and we're going to bring a chapter back to Gardner.
Oh, fantastic.
And I have some handouts, if I can just give them to Jeannie, then maybe she can pass them out later.
Sure, that'd be fine.
Thank you.
No, thank you very much. That's great news to hear. Anyone else coming forward? With no one else coming forward, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Is there a council member that would like to remove an item from the consent agenda?
Yes, number 3.
Number 3.
Number 8.
Number 8. Anyone else?
It took the two I was going to take off, so I think we're good.
Okay.
I would move to approve.
1, 2, 4, 5, 6, and 7.
Yes.
Second.
Motion winners second shoot that we approve consent agenda items 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, and 7. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? I went to the Governing Body Institute this weekend. We're gonna make sure that we don't, we pay attention, make sure we're not missing any abstentions. So, consent agenda item number 3, authorize the city administrator to execute a 3-year agreement with CenturyLink Communications LLC for 100 megabyte per second internet service with CenturyLink Communications. Cheryl, do you wanna, or is there somebody else that
Question? I just
wanna
need to
field
say-
questions?
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
You're recusing?
Yes.
Okay. Anybody else have questions about consent agenda item number 3?
Yeah, I was gonna ask, Greg about this. This is for existing capacity, or is this also facilitating the high-speed connection between this location and the disaster recovery site?
We've already got a connection between here and the disaster recovery site. This is for replacing our current high-speed internet, which is not high-speed at all.
Okay, so we're getting a dedicated 100 megabit circuit?
That's correct.
Okay, excellent, thank you.
Anyone else? Questions?
Oh, I did have one last question, I'm sorry, Greg. What's the marginal cost increase between our current subscription with CenturyLink and this particular service?
I didn't do the total, about $350. We're currently paying over $900 for a slow link.
That seems overpriced.
It's something that, at 3 years ago, it was a pretty good deal.
Not anymore.
For this type of connection.
Sure,
But
sure.
anyway, this is a much better deal. It's still, when you've got Google Fiber right up the road and it's a lot cheaper, it would be, that would be a much better option. We just don't have that option right now. With competition comes better pricing, and in 3 years, we'll look at and hopefully we'll have a significantly better option.
And this is for telecommunications parlance, this is a T1 line, correct?
This is, it's actually a fiber connection.
Fiber,
Yes.
it's G3? What it is?
They don't use those terms very often anymore. Those are more,
Okay.
the old bonding of telephone lines.
Sure, okay, great, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Unless there's any other questions, I would entertain a motion on consent agenda item number 3.
So moved.
Second.
Motion shoot, second Moore, that we approve consent agenda item number 3. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Those abstaining?
Aye.
So, consent agenda item number 3 passes. Consent agenda item number 8. Consider approval of the transfer of electric service for the Waverly Road lift station to the Kansas City Power and Light Company, and authorize the city administrator to execute agreements providing for the relocation of city utilities required for the reconstruction of Waverly Road by the city of Edgerton. Todd, questions?
My question, I think I understand what's being proposed. I guess my question was, the energy usage by the lift station, the revenue generated from that, does it, you know, compared to the cost of relocating the line in the near future? Dave?
Actually,
Is it a small, very small amount of revenue?
actually, the biggest issue on that is I had built in anticipation of development years ago, a line on 191st Street. The section, basically the western half mile, from Waverly to a half mile east, is in road right of way. When that road is improved, that line will have to be relocated at city expense. The only customer on that line is this lift station. So by transferring service to Kansas City Power and Light, we will avoid the cost of having to relocate that line on 191st Street. Whenever that road is improved, city crews would go out, remove the line, salvage the material for reuse.
Okay. So the revenue from the powering the lift station,
It's negligible.
okay.
Yeah, I think the differential between city and KCP&L is negligible. When you look at the avoided cost to have to reconstruct the line, then that's where your savings
Pretty
are.
substantial.
I've got a question about the lift station in general. This is not necessarily yours, Dave, but really more for you. We have a lift station that's in the city of Gardner, completely surrounded by the city of Edgerton now. And I think you know where I'm going with this. Since it looks like Edgerton is making a serious play for basically all that area, does it make sense for us to keep that lift station in the city of Gardner? And I'm just throwing it out there. It may be something that maybe I'm asking you a stupid question. You tell me. But I mean, is this just for our portion of the Big Bull Creek, service, or is that?
And what we've got right now is we're delivering about 150,000 gallons a day to the city of Edgerton, which is the minimum that we can supply.
Okay.
We can always increase that, and when we increase that flow, we can offload Kill Creek plants and delay the expansion of that plant. Was kind of the plan. The city of Edgerton has actually looked at us or talked to us about while they're annexing all those areas,
I know.
they need service. And so they are looking to work with the city to punch into that lift station and provide sewer service for their properties, which we could work with them on that.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Other questions regarding consent agenda item number 8? If not, I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Harrison, second Melton, that we approve consent agenda item number 8. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? Consent agenda item number 8 passes. We'll move on to new business. New business item number 1. Public hearing for 2016 Community Development Block Grant Application. Authorize the mayor to execute 2016 Community Development Block Grant Application. Brian.
Thank you, Mayor. The Community Development Block Grant funds are distributed to cities through an annual application process. Past CDBG projects here in Gardner include storm drainage improvements in Palma in 2010, 183rd Street reconstruction in 2011, and the downtown area sidewalk and ramp reconstruction currently in design for 2015. The typical limits for CDBG grants is $100,000 per year. You can apply for $200,000, but that would then cover you for the next 2 years. If the city does request and receive funds in excess of $100,000 in 2016, we would be eligible to submit for a new project in 2018. Staff is proposing an application for a $200,000 grant. with a city match of $50,000 for the renovation of the Gardner Senior Center. This would be to improve the accessibility consistent with current ADA standards. The $50,000 match includes funds earmarked for the senior center building in 2015. This facility is located within an identified low and moderate income census block and qualifies for funding under CDBG requirements. The facility was constructed in 1980, and while it has been very well maintained, no major renovations have occurred, and the facility does not meet current ADA standards. The facility does have over 400 reservations in 2014, which includes the Johnson County Meals on Wheels program that utilizes the facility every weekday with the exception of holidays. This facility is used by seniors and the general public and needs to meet ADA standards. The city did hold a community open house to gather citizen input on April 30th. A meeting was held at the senior center. The open house was attended by 8 people, and staff did receive 21 comments about the proposed plan. As part of that, city staff did consult with a design professional to provide a preliminary look at the sites regarding the remodel, along with a rough cost estimate. The federal funds, if awarded, would be utilized for ADA upgrades that are considered hard improvements only, such as bathroom upgrades, kitchen upgrades, exterior improvements, ramps, water fountains, etc. Movable objects such as tables and chairs, projectors and appliances can be part of the overall project, but not paid for out of CDBG funds. And at this point, Jeff will present a PowerPoint.
Thanks, Brian. Jeff, good evening.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. To go a little bit to start with some of the uses of the building, and as Brian alluded to, the building is heavily used with a number of reservations each and every year. I went ahead and went back over time from 2010 to 2014. We had over 2,600 reservations and brought in a little over $36,000 in revenues from those reservations. To look at an average over that same time period, we've had 534 rentals per year with a little over $7,200 in rentals. That does include the Monday through Friday reservation we have with the Meals on Wheels program. They are there daily, Monday through Friday, with the exception of holidays. Outside of that, we certainly heavily use the building for other public use. They are private rentals, whether that be birthday parties and banquets and things, to public and private meetings, and then we certainly do some of our recreation programming out of the building as well. So I certainly recognize that some of the detail on the concept board may be difficult to read from the screen for the public. So the information that I'll be going over this evening is also displayed on the hard boards on the side of the room here for everyone to feel free to approach and take a look at. But the project, as Brian indicated, will basically we'll approach it to resolve some of the non-compliant ADA issues to the extent that we possibly can. Make the building more functional for various uses. As indicated, we have a wide range of users using the public facility. Update some of the interior finishes for greater appeal, durability, and ease of maintenance, and even increase energy efficiency of the building through its fixtures and systems. So this is a floor plan of the existing building that we'll run through here this evening. It's great to have all the interior improvements, but if you can't get into the building, then it doesn't make much sense. So we would like to start from the exterior and taking a look at the means that may be there for a new curb ramp from the parking lot to the building entry, restriping the parking lot, adding signage to identify the ADA stalls, replace exterior signage, replace entry doors, consider a power assist replacement on the west door, and then certainly want to protect our building with recaulking of the windows and prep and repaint the lintels there. Moving inside here, this is a photograph of one of the restrooms in the facility today. We would propose replacing the partitions that are in the facility, update the finishes, certainly with ADA compliant fixtures and accessories, and an ADA drinking fountain, not in the restroom itself, but as part of the plumbing that we would be dealing with. You can see here what we would be looking at. You can notice from the countertop there is an ADA approved sink area or countertop there, and the new partitions and some of the light fixtures there. Moving to the kitchen area, this is a photograph of our existing kitchen. We'd like to reconfigure the kitchen for ADA compliant areas, replace aging appliances. Actually, some of those appliances are original to the building in 1980. Update some of the finishes, and consider a portable warming oven for caterers and the Meals on Wheels program, because most of the users are actually preparing their food outside of the facility and bringing it in, and so there's the desire to keep those meals warm. You can see here, which is pictured on the board to the side of me, an approved ADA countertop. And not necessarily that we've picked fixtures and appliances and so forth, but to create an image or a concept of what we'd be looking at for counter use and improved and updated appliances and fixtures. The community room, or the large room that we have in the building, we'd be looking at new furnishings to accommodate flexibility of use. We certainly have a large number of meetings in there, whether they be public meetings or private meetings. Special events, I mentioned banquets, receptions, birthday parties, and so forth. Dining, we have dining there just about daily during the week with the Meals on Wheels program, but certainly with our private reservations as well. And we have a number of recreation programs that take place in that space too. One of the other things we wanted to look at is create an area or a space in there where we could have some soft seating or kind of a relaxing area for our facility users to enjoy. Also in the community room, we would be looking at replacing the furniture, the stackable chairs that we currently have, and the tables as well. We had some discussion in our public meeting on what types of tables we should have there, whether they be round tables, rectangular tables, and so forth, so we've made some notes on that. Even the handles on the doors in the building are not ADA compliant, so we would be replacing those as part of the update. And there's a large number of meetings and events that take place in there that could utilize an updated audio-visual system to include a digital projector, a motorized projector screen, and perhaps some equipment that would support those desires. Kind of along with that, we would be interested in replacing the window coverings with a motorized window covering for ease of use for those PowerPoint presentations and things that would take place in that building. Would also be looking at our replacing the walk-off carpet and entry areas, improve that. A new suspended acoustic ceiling with recessed LED lighting. And we would also be taking a look at the different types of flooring options today, perhaps a wood plank type flooring that would look really nice. The key is we would want to make sure we do a lot of research on that for durability, maintenance, and something that would not scratch easily or dent easily. So again, to recap, most of the improvements would be to resolve the non-compliant ADA issues to the extent that we possibly can. As Brian mentioned, with these grant funds, that's what the focus would be on that. City's match could, however, go towards some of these other things like the movable tables and chairs and the audio-visual type equipment. That's our understanding. From a cost estimate standpoint, we don't have an itemized line item detail here. This is a conceptual look at this project. Restroom renovations, anywhere from $80,000 to $90,000. The large community room, probably $80,000 plus furnishings. The storage room, another $6,000. The kitchen area, about $100,000, for a total estimate between $266,000 and $277,000. And this is not all-inclusive, but a bullet point of representing a number of the comments that were received at the public meeting in April that we held at the senior building itself. And with that, we'd certainly be happy to answer any questions or...
Well, I do know we've got a public hearing on this. We should be probably taking questions after we hold the public hearing.
Very good.
So, with that being the case, I would entertain a motion to hold a public hearing to receive public input regarding the proposed 2016 Community Development Block Grant application.
So moved.
Second.
Motion, Shute, second, Melton, that we open the public hearing. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? The public hearing is open. Anyone wishing to make public comments, please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record, and be heard.
Hello. I was one of the 8 people that attended the presentation, and I want to say that it was absolutely wonderful. I wish more people would have been able to put that on their agenda. The presentation that Jeff gave, supported by Brian and Michelle, was outstanding. One thing I did like is the fact that they listened very seriously to any question or any suggestion that any of those people that were at that meeting had. That was wonderful. I do hope that if there are some overruns over and above, if we get the full grant, over and above the $50,000 that we would put as our part of the project, that if there were any overruns that made sense, I sure hope that we can find in the budget a way to actually finish this project off and have the type of facility to be proud of. I have both used this facility personally for a party and as part of teaching through the Parks and Rec, and I think that these improvements will be wonderful.
Thank you, Debbie. Anyone else? I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved. Second.
Motion Harrison, second, should we close the public hearing? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? The public hearing is closed. So, questions regarding the new business item number 1 for Jeff or Brian?
Bring up the slide again with the numbers. I appreciate you guys putting those on there, but
Bet. Registration?
the initial, like, how the revenue generated, the very first slide.
Yes.
Thank you.
I was gonna look at this.
I asked when I was one of those 8 people at the meeting.
There you go.
Thank you. What is the current rate now? Do we charge, is it by the hour, is it by, how does that work? And then would that be adjusted when we get everything, kind of up to snuff a little bit?
Sure. There's actually 3 current rates. There's a senior rate, a resident rate, and a non-resident rate. I'd like to double check that to make sure I provide you with accurate numbers, but we have kept those rates low over the years with intentions to make it affordable for as many, if not all, citizens that have interest in using the building. But I'd be happy to forward all of those current rates to all of you, and I certainly think that it is something that we could discuss if you wanted to have the desire to make some adjustments, whether these improvements are done or not.
Yeah, I think that's kind of to piggyback on Rich's concern. I know it says here we've had total revenues for 4 years of $36,405. First of all, understanding we will never, ever, ever recover the amount that we put into this senior center. It's one of those, what I consider to be, community assets. It's not necessarily a money generator, and we don't want it to necessarily be a big money generator. Because the people of this community, this is why they put in their property tax money, is to have things like the senior center that they can utilize and at a lower cost than they would have to go to Olathe or Overland Park, okay, to have the same kind of service. So, personally, I'd like to keep those rates as low as possible if we can, because, again, seniors are on fixed incomes, we don't have the most high-earning demographic in this community, we'd like to be able to service that. So,
Absolutely. I will provide
agree.
those to you.
I'd just like to see it at more than $20 a day. You know, that's the average if you break it down, you know, and that's where, I think if we can get that up a little bit, it helps to justify some of these expenditures.
Right. I think the average is a bit skewed. We have a lease agreement with the county Meals on Wheels
Yeah, I
program,
understand.
which is not much revenue at all. I think it's around, I'll double check it for you, but I think it's around $1,700 a year.
yeah.
Yeah, I know,
so-
and that one I'm not worried about. I mean, I think they do a great job, so.
But I'll certainly get those numbers to you.
Yeah. If, there may be some flexibility to look at rates, but
Sure.
we need to err on the side of affordability if we can.
Yeah.
Other questions, comments? If not, I would entertain a motion on new business item number 1.
I move we, go ahead.
Motion, Winters, second, Harrison, that we authorize the mayor to execute the 2016 Community Development Block Grant application to Johnson County. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? New business item number 1 passes. This item number 1 passes. Gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, gentlemen.
Consider appointment of a Business and Economic Development Director. Cheryl Harrison Lee.
I'm very pleased to provide you the resume of Mr. Larry Powell, who would be able to serve as our Business and Economic Development Director. He has in excess of 30 years of experience in economic development, working with the chamber, working with local municipalities, and is very involved in business retention and expansion on their national board and soon to be their incoming president. The firm of Affion Public provided the recruitment services for us. The selection committee included a human resource supervisor, a finance director, and the city administrator. And I'd be happy to answer any questions about Mr. Powell's tenure. He's available to start, if approved tonight, for us next month.
Okay. Real quick, we'll open the floor for public comments regarding new business item number 2. Anyone who has any comments? No one coming forward. Questions regarding the appointment of the Business and Economic Development Director?
Mr. Powell is not here this evening?
He is not here.
He is not here this evening. He's from Salina, correct?
Correct.
And he's been serving as the Director of Business Retention and Expansion out there for...
Since 2008?
The last 7 years.
Correct.
Do you happen to have an idea of the business climate in Salina currently right now?
I do not.
They've been in the midst of a downtown revitalization and a very large business expansion the last several years. So it's good that, I mean, Salina's kind of been in the same position as us. They've got ready access to an interstate, but they're kind of under leveraging that. And so this kind of seems to be right in his ballpark, doesn't it?
It does. He's very involved in business retention and expansion. He not only has done that for Salina, but he also has worked with, you'll notice on his resume, he's done economic development for Butler County, as well as at the Port Authority, as well as business relations with Pittsburgh, Kansas, and a little stint in South Carolina for the development board there with NASCAR Speedway. So he's got some of the broader, larger components as well.
You mentioned NASCAR, and we're in Gardner. Anyway, let's move on, shall we?
Yeah, I've got, I do want to mention, as part of what he does in Salina, he's also director of Project Open, which is a program that tries to encourage and support entrepreneurial efforts. And given what that the Greater Kansas City Chamber has made it a priority to make the Kansas City region the most friendly to entrepreneurs. We can kind of piggyback on some of the work that they've done already, with the addition of someone like Mr. Powell.
I think business incubators might be a good thing to work on in that regard.
So, any other questions?
I'm excited for him to start. I'm
Yes.
excited for this position to be filled, but I'm also excited he had his, master's degree from Wichita State University.
No shocker. All right.
Can't go wrong.
That's, yeah, that's good too.
Yeah.
But unless there's other questions, I'd entertain a motion on new business item number 2.
So moved.
Second.
Motion, Shute, second, Harrison, that we appoint Larry Powell as Business and Economic Development Director, for the city of Gardner. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? We have a new Business and Economic Development Director, or as everybody's already calling them, a bed director.
Okay.
No?
Thank you very much, Mayor and Council, and I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Brian Powell for his assistance during the recruitment timeframe with really stepping up to the plate and kind of helping manage public works as well as business and economic development.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. That's, I couldn't agree more. He's over there. There's a cape on underneath the sports coat. We're gonna, I'm gonna run that into the ground this evening, so. New business item number 3, consider adoption of a resolution ratifying the city of Gardner's participation in the Kansas Mutual Aid Program for utilities. Amy Foster, good evening, always good to see you here.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. On May 7th, the Utility Advisory Commission approved a recommendation to the City Council to consider adopting a resolution ratifying the City of Gardner's participation in the Kansas Mutual Aid Program. The Kansas Mutual Aid Program is an organized emergency response plan, so if a community gets hit with a disaster, this is kind of a resource tool where they can come and ask for other cities that have utilities to come and assist them. And so according to the Kansas statute 1216, section 117, the right to enter into the program is reserved for the governing body. And so we are asking that you adopt this ordinance or resolution. We're asking for a resolution tonight to ratify the City of Gardner's participation.
Okay.
Back to you.
All right, thanks, Amy. You might want to hang tight just in case, but we'll open the floor for public comments regarding new business item number 3. Is there anyone in attendance that would like to speak to our participation in the Kansas Mutual Aid Program for utilities? With no one coming forward, questions for Amy regarding what would be resolution number 1923?
I have a quick question on, if something happens to another one of the cities and they're wiped out, are they gonna request that we send people, and then are we just gonna approve that and pay for those folks' salary, or how does that work?
Actually, they send the request. We are not required to go.
Okay.
It depends on the resources that we have available. And then we actually bill that.
Okay.
So there is a FEMA equipment rate and a personnel rate that they would have on file. And so then we actually would bill that to the community that was requested, as well as if Gardner actually
Right.
needed that, then we would pay
Well,
for
that was the
as
other
well.
benefit.
And a lot of times FEMA comes in and covers a lot of that.
Right.
Other questions? Otherwise, I would entertain a motion on resolution 1923.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Harrison, second Moore, that we adopt resolution number 1923, ratifying the City of Gardner's participation in the Kansas Mutual Aid Program for utilities. Harrison?
Yes.
Melton?
Yes.
Moore?
Yes.
Shute?
Yes.
Winchester?
Yes.
Resolution number 1923 passes. Amy, thank you very much. New business item number 4, consider appointments to the Planning Commission. So, at the March 18th, 2013 13 meeting, we adopt the governing body rules of procedure, and we've got a specific process for selecting people for boards and commissions. As it turns out, we have two members whose terms were expiring in May of 2015, Adriana Metter and Jennifer Gilmore. We followed the appropriate procedure, including, we had 4 people apply. We asked somebody whose application was on file, 2 people whose applications were on file, if they would like to reapply, because those applications are good for a year. One of the 2 elected to interview again, and on May 11th, myself, Council President Shute, the city administrator, and as a representative from the Planning Commission, Brett Lymer, conducted interviews of 5 candidates: Adriana Metter, Heath Freeman, Sean Carlisle, Bruce Hughes, and Andy Stevens. And we had great people to choose from. We really couldn't have made a wrong decision. But at this time, I am bringing forward for appointment Adriana Metter, whose term just expired, and Heath Freeman, who is familiar to most of you. And that's all I have for presentation. At this time, I'll open the floor for public comments regarding new business item number 4. With no one coming forward, I would open the floor for questions or comments regarding the appointees.
I have a few quick questions. Based on, I'd asked for the dates, the filing dates for everyone. I noticed, and you alluded to it, that Bruce Hughes had submitted his on August 8th of 2014. And Bruce had sent us all a copy of his, I guess, resume, or the application that he sent in. And I was just wondering, from your perspective, Mr. Mayor, I looked at his, and this is why I think it's so important that the governing body as a whole gets all applications for these positions, because Bruce worked in construction for 6 years with the Iowa Department of Transportation and 8 years for the Bureau of the Census, and he does demographic analysis and construction specs, and he just finished the Gardner U Academy. So my question would be, why wasn't he one of those people who might have been sent forward? Because to me, it seems like, and I know 2 of the 3 people are friends with Heath, friends with Bruce, but based on applications alone, it seems like with us having a highway going through town, and then potentially going across another highway, having somebody with DOT experience, to me, it seems like that would be the best possible scenario on a planning commission. I just wondered your thoughts on that.
We got the applications as well. It was something that was taken into consideration. People's applications were taken into consideration, just like their interviews were taken into consideration, just as, in the case of people that were chosen, a little experience on boards or commissions already. There wasn't, if Bruce had been the choice, it wouldn't have been a bad choice. And you're gonna probably, at some point, have an opportunity to sit through the entirety of this process. Everybody that was on the previous governing body had a turn, sitting in on the interviews for boards and commissions. So, it's the kind of the decision that's made after a lot of thought.
Well,
I mean, I don't want to try and compare one person against another, certainly, but they were considered privately, while reviewing the applications, while interviewing them, and in discussions afterwards.
To me, it seems like a real loss for the city, because he's been passed over now twice and has that experience, and is, I mean, and I, no offense to the other candidates, but based on the applications that I received, they don't have anything anywhere close to the experience level of that. And, I mean, you know, to me, it shouldn't be about, you know, putting our friends in places. We should have the most qualified people. I mean, that's really what it is. If you're in the hiring business.
Yes.
If you were going to send these resumes to somebody and they were looking for someone who had a specific skill set, I don't know that the two that showed up tonight would be the ones that they would pick in your line of work.
You know, I don't want to debate it with you. Now that the appointments have been brought forward, I would prefer to move on based on the recommendations and the merit that everyone sees in it. None of this had anything to do with friendship. I can assure you of that. Other questions or comments? If not, I would entertain a motion to appoint Adriana Metter to the Planning Commission with her term expiring May of 2018.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Harrison, second Winters, that we appoint Adriana Metter to the Planning Commission. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
I've got two, is there and a third?
Yeah, it's aye.
All those opposed?
Nay. Nay.
And no abstentions. Adriana Metter, welcome back to the Planning Commission. I would entertain a motion to appoint Heath Freeman to the Planning Commission with his term expiring in May 2018.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Harrison, second Winters, that we appoint Heath Freeman to the Planning Commission. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
No. Nay.
And no abstentions. Heath Freeman, welcome to the Planning Commission. New business item number 5. Consider adopting a resolution authorizing the financing of certain improvements to the water system of the city of Gardner, Kansas through the issuance of general obligation bonds under KSA 65-163D through 65-163U, including the prepayment of a loan entered into in connection with such improvements. And this would be Laura Gorley. Good evening.
So for new business item number 5 and 6, they kind of go together. We're proposing that the city entertain refinancing a existing KDHE loan with cheaper general obligation bonds. And one step that is not required when you do a loan is to authorize the improvements, but it is required when you do bonds. So that's what new business item number 5 is. We have an existing $7.5 million KDHE loan. You want to refinance it. Make an assumption you want to refinance it, and if you do, you have to do this step first where you authorize the improvements in order to enable the city to reimburse itself for the expansion project expenses for future bond proceeds, which is essentially to repay the KDHE loan. We've obviously already done the expansion, but they consider the KDHE loan as interim financing, so you're authorizing the improvements that were made and to pay them off with this step. Because you're going to reimburse yourself with bond proceeds.
Okay. Public comments regarding new business item number 5. We're saving hundreds of thousands of dollars. I'm not anticipating any. Laura, questions for Laura regarding new business item number 5?
I'm in the right one here. Is this, we're deciding whether or not to prepay a year early, or?
No.
Not on this
This
one?
step, you can't do anything with the GEO bonds until you authorize the improvements, which is required when you do GEO bonds, but not when we did the loan. So you have to do this step first, even though the improvements already exist.
Gotcha.
It's a formality.
Well, it's published as part of the disclosure for the bond sale, correct?
It's being discussed as a refinancing of
Correct.
these existing improvements, including the price to prepay these loans.
That's correct.
Yes,
We do stand on formality on here. so-
we do,
Yes, we do.
especially when we're issuing debt.
You bet. Any other questions or comments? If not, I would entertain a motion on resolution number 1924.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Shute, second Moore, that we adopt resolution number 1924, authorizing the financing of certain improvements to the water system of the city of Gardner, Kansas through the issuance of general obligation bonds under KSA 65-163B through 65-163U, including the prepayment of a loan entered into in connection with such improvements. Harrison?
Yes.
Melton?
Yes.
Moore?
Yes.
Shute?
Yes.
Winters?
Yes.
Resolution number 1924 passes. New business item number 6. Laura?
Okay, so following up, to now that you've authorized the improvements, I'm going to ask you to authorize approximately $4.25 million in general obligation refunding bonds, which we have scheduled to sell on June 15th at 11. This is only for the refinancing. There's no new money project involved here, and it is, again, for the expansion of the Hillsdale project that's already happened, but you're going to be repaying the loan with the proceeds. And with that, I'm going to let Financial Advisor Kimmel come up and talk to you about what Councilman Winters was talking about, what we're going to do with the proceeds, and then I'll come back and walk you through the end.
Very good, thanks, Laura. Good evening, Bruce.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. I'm Bruce Kimmel, the municipal advisor with Ehlers and Associates. Thank you for having me. I should note immediately, you might be wondering about the dollar amounts. The amount listed here on your new business item number 6 of $4,250,000 is what's known as a not to exceed amount. You can see from the pre-sale report that I believe you have in your council packets that we're actually estimating a bond amount of $4,205,000. We strongly suspect that this financing will be at that dollar amount or less, based on current bidding parameters that we see in the marketplace. We just wanted to make sure you knew it wasn't a typo. We tend to err on the side of conservatism in terms of authorizing debt, but very much expect that the debt structure would look like what's here in the pre-sale report. I would like to just make a couple of comments, if I could, Mr. Mayor and council members. It's worth noting that the loan that you're considering refinancing is itself a general obligation of the city. So it's a general obligation loan payable with water revenues. We're really just looking to replace that with a lower interest cost general obligation bond, also payable with water revenues from the city's water utility. The existing interest rate, as you saw in the packet, is approximately 3.5%, and we're estimating an all-inclusive true interest cost of about 1.78%, so roughly half of the existing debt rate. We actually have two options for your consideration. The first is our recommendation, and that's to shorten the debt term from 11 years of existing debt to 10 years. What that will do is increase, using the estimated debt service rates that we have here, increase debt service by about $7,600 for the first 10 years. But then because you eliminate that last payment, you'll actually save about $450,000 in that last year. So when you combine all those into one savings stream, the total overall savings are approximately $382,000, or $382,500. And on a present value basis, that's about 7.6% of the existing debt service. You do have an alternative, and you really can do whatever you want with the refinancing, but the other one we presented for your consideration is to really match the existing debt term over the existing 11 years. Do not reduce the debt service by a year, and in that scenario, you would reduce debt service by about $29,000 a year. Overall savings there would be approximately $322,000, so it would be about $60,000 less than the recommended approach. But again, that's a policy decision. It's completely up to you. A few other points. If you do the recommended approach, it will be a 10-year term, as you can see from the packet. We would recommend that you make those bonds prepayable in October of 2023, or any date thereafter. These bonds will be bank qualified, which means that the interest rates that you'll receive from bidders will be slightly better than if you were issuing more than $10 million in the calendar year. We don't expect that to happen. And then also your current bonds are rated AA- by Standard & Poor's. Because of the size and length of this bond issue, we believe it definitely makes sense to obtain a new rating from S&P. We would definitely expect an affirmation of your existing AA- rating. Finally, you can see that we're proposing a competitive bid process as the city has followed with almost all bond issues except for state loans, essentially. Very strong bidding environment still, especially for Kansas bonds, given that demand is far outstripping supply. So we would actually anticipate you doing better in the current rate environment than what we're showing here in terms of interest rates. But we do assume a 1% discount allowance, as you have had with previous bond issues. That's basically allowing for essentially like points on a mortgage. The winning bidder can elect to either take all or some of that or none of that, and we would factor that choice along with the interest rates into determining the winning bid. There are no other refunding opportunities at this time in our consideration. There are a few points about continuing disclosure and arbitrage monitoring requirements that the city has. You contract with your bond attorneys at QTech Rock to handle it on your behalf. And the only last thing I would say is under risk factors for current refunding, you really are saying at this point that you think that the current rate environment is appropriate to undertake this refunding. The KDHE loan is prepayable at any point, or payable, you can pay it off at any point, but we're really under the impression from the city that you have no intent to pay off the full amount at this point, and that you think it's appropriate to undertake the refinancing in today's rate environment. Then the very last section shows the other participants in the transaction against QTech Rock as your bond attorney, State of Kansas as paying agent on the bonds, and Standard & Poor's as the rating agency. Calendar, we would be proposing to go out to the market with the official statement the week of June 1st, having the rating agent see discussion that same time frame. I would be back the evening of June 15th, having received the bids and determined the winning bid with the appropriate resolution and ordinance for the City Council's consideration roughly a month from now. So then finally, Mr. Mayor and Council, I would welcome any questions you have about this report or the supporting numbers. I believe you probably saw the debt service comparison, which is about 3 pages into the numbers at the back of the report. This really is the apples-to-apples comparison of the existing debt service on the KDHE loan compared to the existing new debt service. And again, you can see the approximately $7,000, $8,000 a year of a slightly higher debt service that we're projecting that would be payable from water revenues, but with the big payday, if you will, in the last year of getting rid of $450,000 of debt service in that final year. And you can see how that all nets out to about $383,000. That's what I have for you. Thank you.
Okay. Well, we're going to open the floor for public comments real quickly. Anyone wants to make public comments about new business item number 6? Now is your opportunity. Okay, questions for Laura or Bruce regarding new business item number 6? On a personal note, I've been having a hard time keeping my reserve here. Every time Bruce shows up, it seems like we're saving hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it makes me really happy. So,
Keep coming back.
Yes, please. And Laura, and I see Nancy back there, and everybody else that's part of the finance team, keep helping bring this stuff back. But questions for Laura or Bruce regarding this?
Yeah, one for Bruce. It shows on the executive summary that your average estimated refunding interest rate is 1.78%.
Right.
Now, last several bond issues, if I remember correctly, one, we had underestimated the number of bidders and we overestimated the final refunding rate. So that 1.78 is probably on the high end of your curve, correct? I mean,
Council President Shute, I hope so. We are seeing rates start to tick up a little bit, but with world events, those could easily tick back down again. I'm less prone to say we're definitely considerably high here, but I do feel good about this interest rate, and I think we'll come very close to that.
and then the S&P re-rating that we were looking for. We're talking about AA minus and reaffirming that existing S&P rating. Given our fund balances, which continue to be very strong, and our debt service, which is dropping, or
Yes.
we're lowering our overall debt load, would there be a possibility that S&P might upgrade our bond rating?
Yes, I'm glad you mentioned that. We, Councilmember Shute, we do look at their rating framework every year before we have these rating calls, and we look at where you're on the bubble, if you will, of a rating upgrade. They have various categories that they look at. You mentioned two of the very strongest points there, and also the city's tax value is going up as well, which is a positive point. We would definitely be making that case for a rating upgrade. I think it's a possibility. I would say that S&P is still in a little bit of retrenchment mode, and that on local governments overall, not because of anything in the city of Gardner, but you're seeing more affirmations at existing ratings than you are seeing upgrades. But I would also note that your finance director and assistant finance director do a fantastic job of preparing for these rating calls. They take them very seriously, and we would definitely be looking to put together all of the information to make that case if we possibly can.
I think we have a good case.
Absolutely.
Especially with the assessed value. You talked about assessed valuation increases, also the economic development being generated by the intermodal might give us a bit of a leg up on that. So hopefully we'll pursue that.
I'm glad you clarified. We always try to accentuate those points whenever we can. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
My question, I guess, is to the council, on whether or not saving the year at the end, or, realizing the cash flow improvement now, it's not a huge amount, but if it's 29,000 positive cash flow on average per year, plus not doing the 7,000, that's, $35,000, $36,000 a year. I don't know. I mean, is that anything substantial enough to
just forego the 60,000?
at the end of the term?
I don't know that it is.
Yeah, personally, I think it's better to go with the shorter term, and we have a quicker payoff. One, we don't pay as much in interest overall in the life of the loan, but also secondly, it sends a message from the standpoint of fiscal stewardship that we are trying to keep our overall debt load down overall.
Does it make much difference?
I only calculated it as against what it might do to rates in a vacuum, just these things.
Right.
And neither way made any difference. So it is entirely the impact overall versus, it's exactly what you said. Shorten it by a year and get a bigger bang for the effort, or have a little positive cash flow savings. As far as driving the rates, that was the only thing I could come up to help differentiate for you, and it just doesn't make any difference either way. So the biggest impact is what financial advisor's recommending, which would be to shorten the term by a year.
I think I get what you're saying. You're trying to increase the positive cash flow on the front end.
Right.
Yeah.
Which, I see the merits of that. I don't know if $28,000 or $27,000.
36.
Or 36. Well, you got to take out the 7,000 because that's going to be realized regardless. But I mean, I don't know if that extra, $20,000 to $30,000 a year is going to make a lot of difference. And I like that back end savings.
Yeah. The 60,000 is a compelling number. Other questions or comments?
So I wanted to finish you up then, if you're ready.
Good.
Okay, so I did want to point out two things. Number one, we talked in here about the net, Financial Advisor Kimmel noted that the net present value is 7.56% of the refunded debt. Government Finance Officers Association rule of thumb is 3 to 5. So it far exceeds that. And we actually wrote a piece in the resolution that if we did not, for some weird reason, get at least 3, we're not moving forward. But I wanted you to know that's actually in here. And then finally, what you're actually voting on is you're authorizing the sale of the bonds.
Yes.
Okay?
All right. Unless there's other questions or comments, I would entertain a motion on adopting Resolution 1925.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Moore, second Melton, that we adopt resolution number 1925, authorizing the public sale of approximately $4,250,000 principal amount of general obligation for funding bond series 2015A of the city of Gardner, Kansas. Harrison? Melton?
Yes.
Moore?
Yes.
Shute?
Yes.
Winters?
Yes.
Resolution 1925 passes.
And you're going with the option to reduce the term?
Yes.
Great work again, Laura, thank you.
Yes,
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Bruce.
you.
Bruce, safe travels. He's going back to Minnesota, right, Bruce?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. New business item number 7. Consider final plat and accept the dedication of easements for Olathe Ford RV2. Before I let Brian get started, good evening, Brian. This is approval of the governing body. This is something that the mayor votes on. Jeannie, I'm gonna have you call the roll after we get appropriate motions. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. At their April 28, 2015 meeting, the Planning Commission considered a final plat for Olathe RV42, located at 19310 South Gardner Road. The proposed plat is 9.09 acres of a larger 33.06 acre commercial development, and that area is currently developed. The submitted plat contains one lot to accommodate future improvements to the existing Olathe RV Ford. This application was filed by Judd Clausen of Phelps Engineering on behalf of Mark McEver, property owner of record. The applicant proposes to dedicate one additional easement for an existing electric utility line that serves the property. The reason for this is what you see right now. The dashed red line is what's currently platted. You can see that the new building, and then there's a canopy that crosses over that line. And so they need to plat an additional 1.8 acres. There are a number of easements here, 2 by Kansas City Power and Light, that will be vacated as part of this process. Those 2 would be vacated. When a new easement would be created, there in green. Planning Commission did unanimously approve this item at their April 28th meeting and forwarded to the governing body with a recommendation for approval and to accept an easement subject to the conditions as recommended by staff. And those 2 conditions are: prior to the release of the final plat or recording, the required excise tax shall be paid, and the applicant shall remove any setback lines from the final plat prior to recording with Johnson County Records and Tax Administration. For information, the 1.8 acres, additional excise tax of just under $16,000. So, staff suggested motion tonight would be to accept the easement for the submitted final plat and approve the final plat application, FP 1502, for Olathe RV42, subject to those 2 conditions.
And these aren't supposed to be entertained as 2 separate motions? Or can that be one motion?
I think it would be one motion.
One motion, very good. Okay, public comment regarding new business item number 7. No one coming forward. Questions for Brian regarding new business item number 7? That being the case, I would entertain a motion.
So moved. Second.
Motion Harrison, second Shute, that we accept the easement for the submitted final plat to Olathe Ford RV2 and approve the final plat application, FP-15-02, for Olathe Ford RV2, subject to conditions 1 and 2.
Councilmember Harrison?
Yes.
Councilmember Melton?
Yes.
Councilmember Moore?
Yes.
Councilmember Shute?
Yes.
Councilmember Winters?
Yes.
Mayor Morrow?
Yes. Okay, so, new business item number 7 passed. New business item number 8. Consider a proposed rezoning from RP1, RP3, CO, and CP2 to A on property located at the northeast corner of 167th Street and Waverly Road. Brian.
Thank you, Mayor. The applicant is requesting a rezoning of approximately 156 acres, shown here. It's currently zoned single-family residential, multifamily residential, office and commercial districts, and they request it to be rezoned for agricultural in order to develop oil wells on the property. The comprehensive plan does identify the subject property as community commercial and low-density residential, which generally matches the current zoning of the property. While it might appear the downzoning of the property to an agricultural district would be minimally impactful, consideration must be given to what uses are permitted in the district for future development. The A district permits, either by right or with the approval of a CUP, animal farming uses, mineral extraction, hospitals, airports, and other similar uses. These uses are long-term uses that are not consistent with the comprehensive plan. With the subject property being located in what the comprehensive plan identifies as a short-term growth area, many of these uses may not be appropriate in the near future when the subject property and nearby property is developed. The subject property is located within a mile of schools, as access to utilities is on the edge of existing development. The city is starting to see development becoming active, and by changing the zoning of the subject property, it could cause development activity to be delayed or development to leapfrog over the property to an area where existing infrastructure and community facilities are further away. Developing property in a consecutive manner where utilities and facilities are already in place or nearby encourage physical stewardship and existing community investments. At the April 28, 2015 meeting, the Planning Commission held a public hearing to consider the proposed rezoning. The applicant was the only party to speak during the public hearing. The Planning Commission did vote 5-2 to forward the proposed amendment to the governing body with a recommendation for denial. If the governing body wishes to vary from the recommendation of the Planning Commission, the following options are available. Return the item back to the Planning Commission for further consideration with specific direction as to what to reconsider, or to override the Planning Commission's recommendation by a 2/3 majority of the governing body.
If that's the end of the presentation, we can open the floor for public comments regarding new business item number 8.
Before even public comment?
Well, actually, I believe someone representing the applicant is up first,
Okay.
and maybe we can
Okay.
ask him a question in regards to that. State your name and address for the record.
I have 5 short slides. Is there any way that you could put them, just for, while she's getting that up, my name's Keith Brock. I'm here on behalf of the applicant. My address is 216 South Hickory. While she's getting that up, the first thing is, the applicant wishes to make 2 amendments to its application. By amendments, I mean ask the governing body to approve the application as to less than all of the subject property. What the applicant is going to ask is that the property currently zoned as CO, commercial office, and also CP2, the 2 tracks shown on red and blue in the lower left-hand corner, be removed from the application for both the rezoning and the conditional use permit. That's done in an attempt to try to work with the city. That is a highly desirable location for oil wells, but the applicant also recognizes that the corner of 167th and Waverly Road is a prime location for the city, and so to try to accommodate that, the applicant has agreed to remove that. In addition, the applicant has agreed to limit its conditional use permit to 20 years as opposed to the 30 years stated in the application. Again, attempting to work with the city, show that this is not intended to be a long-term use. Who is the applicant? The applicant is Thomas Investments, LP. The general partner of that is Joel Thomas. Joel Thomas is an owner of Thomas Enterprises, which operates approximately 3,000 acres in the Gardner-Edgerton area. Joel Thomas is also a lifelong resident of the Gardner-Edgerton area. So he's a hometown guy. He lives here. This is his home. The property that you see on this slide outlined in red, all of the property outlined in red is owned by the applicant. This particular rezoning and CUP is only for the 160-acre tract. It would be the westerly portion of it. There's approximately 195 acres here that's owned by the applicant. Only 95 acres of that would be affected by this application. So the remaining 100 acres would be left completely vacant, ready to be developed for commercial and residential purposes at any time that it's ready. I want to emphasize that this is a temporary use. Once applicant is only wishing to extract a limited portion of the reserves that currently exist until the property can be developed to its full potential for residential and commercial purposes. The other thing I want to emphasize is that the applicant owns the real estate and he is also going to be the operator. There are no investments, there are no long-term leases. The buck truly does stop with him in this case. He's invested heavily in Gardner, as you can see. There's no one with more incentive to make sure that this development is done correctly, plugged correctly once it's finished, than the applicant. Staff posed the question, does the landowner willing to guarantee that these wells are plugged out correctly? And applicant answers, absolutely he will. So, as I said, the applicant also owns a company called ST Petroleum. The sole purpose of ST Petroleum is to operate or produce oil from properties owned by Mr. Thomas. This letter that I've got on the screen is a letter from CVR Refining. To give you an idea of the size of CVR Refining, it's a company based out of Sugar Land, Texas, had $9 billion in net sales last year. For a company that size, they chose the applicant's Thomas A. lease for the site of its 2014 field tour. It's a short letter, so just to read it to you, it says, thank you for sponsoring the tour on June 20th, 2014 of the SP Petroleum's Thomas A. lease in Johnson County, Kansas, west of Gardner. The energy professionals work in legal and accounting capacities for CVR Refining. Our desire was to take these professionals on a tour to see the actual oil and gas lease in operation. We chose the Thomas A. lease because it is an example of one of the finest producing oil and gas leases in the Mid-Continent region. Our desire was to demonstrate an active oil and gas lease that meets the highest level of engineering, operational, and environmental excellence. Our tour group had limited exposure to actual field operations. The group was impressed with the great care that was taken to design and planning of this operation to work seamlessly with an active farming operation. Thanks for being good stewards to the minerals under the ground and the surface of the land. This tour enabled our energy professionals to understand how the different sectors, energy, farming, and environment, worked well in unison. This letter is very significant, like I say, because of the size of CVR. This is a national company, and for them to choose this lease west of Gardner is a great honor, and you can see the fine comments they had about that. The point of all this is that ST Petroleum has a proven track record. This is not only does Mr. Thomas own the land, this is not going to be his first time at attempting this. He's done it before successfully,
Try again.
There we go. He's done it before successfully, and you can see the proof of that. This picture is an aerial of the property that's being proposed. I put this up because to me it's important to emphasize some of the characteristics around it. On the right-hand side, you'll see the subdivision of Megan Valley. In the middle of that is a block taken out for an electric transmission facility like a substation. The commercial portion of the property which is being removed from this application comes out approximately one lot south of that. So in essence, these wells will be fronted, the wells on the front of Waverly Road will face this electrical substation, and then a vacant tract of agricultural land to the north, which have, in this picture they're small, but if you look very closely you can see about 5 active oil wells north of Megan Valley that already exist. Unlike those north of Megan Valley, these will not be surrounded by plastic snow fence or whatever it is called. To the south, you see the properties that are owned by the applicant in the furthest west corner, and then south of that is primarily agricultural land. And then to the east, where you see the house, there are no wells proposed on the furthest east side of this. To the north is a hedgerow that will obscure, that will act to help conceal the tank site. In addition, the tank battery will be located on the furthest north end up against that hedgerow, and all traffic entering and exiting this property in terms of heavy equipment will be instructed to enter and exit from the north utilizing county roads, so there'll be no heavy traffic on the city streets. In addition, if you look to the furthest, it'd be the upper left-hand corner of your screen, those black dots are an existing tank battery located on the property north of the Megan Valley, and that leased road in essence runs to the west and will intersect Waverly Road at approximately the same location as this one will. So you're not going to have any additional types of traffic than you do already. The question always gets asked, what's in it for the city? And this wasn't in the application, but in an effort to answer that question, which was posed by the Planning Commission, as an example, on the Thomas A. lease, this is property tax only. In 2011, before any development occurred, property taxes were a little over $1,200, as you can see. In 2014, once all of the development took place, property taxes were $41,325.78. That's a significant amount of increase in property taxes to the city of Gardner. In addition, the Thomas A. lease, the mill levy located in rural Johnson County is 119.869 mills. If this were this property that we're talking about, the mill levy would be 133.376 mills. So it would be significantly higher tax and approximately 11.25% higher. So in essence, $46,000 if that same operation were on the subject site. 22% of that goes directly to the city, another 53% of that goes to the school. So of that $46,000, 75% of those funds go directly to the school and to Gardner. There's always a question asked when we talk about amendments. Do we have the ability to amend it? What I'm asking is not necessarily an amendment. I'm asking you to only approve the application as to a portion of the property that's been applied for. We're withdrawing it as to the two commercial tracts that I've outlined below. The issue was recently decided that with a 2/3 vote, you can't amend it, and the statute's there. I do have the authority, if it would be helpful to anybody, I can have it, but I'm sure Mr. Dink can confirm that as well. In closing, I understand that to some of you, this may be a question that you struggle with because of the comprehensive plan and so forth. But from the applicant's perspective, this will not delay commercial and residential development any longer than it would have otherwise. And so, for that reason, I ask you, if you're on the fence on this, why not give the benefit of the doubt to the lifelong resident of Gardner, Edgerton area that have showed his willingness to work with the city throughout this process and has a proven track record in doing what he's proposing to do. In addition, if you look at the application, the reserve report attached shows that between $7.5 and $15 million worth of reserves exists beneath the subject property. So why should the applicant not be allowed to recapture at least some of that until the property is ready to be developed? There's more than 100 acres surrounding this that could be developed immediately. And you may think of it that this has to be plugged as a whole or in phases. That isn't the case. When development's ready, one well can be plugged or two. It can just gradually overtake the field, or all of them can be plugged all at once. This is something that could go away in a matter of weeks. Applicant's merely asking for this interim use to be allowed so that he can realize some of that value. There are two items here. I realize that this is the portion applicable to the zoning. The rezoning is only requested to become eligible for the CUP. So I've combined my presentation into this one topic. I'll not bore you with the same thing during the next agenda item. But if anyone has any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them. The applicant's also here. I'm sure he would be more than happy to answer any questions as well.
Well, we've got a process where we allow for public comment, and then I'm probably going to want to check with the city attorney before we get too deep into discussion. But is there anyone in attendance that would like to speak regarding make public comments regarding new business item number 8? With no one coming forward, I'd kind of like to lead the questions with a question to Ryan. It appears that the applicant's wanting to, and if I understood this correctly, change the application.
It's a withdrawal of the two commercial parcels.
Yeah. And how does that affect what we're discussing this evening? What we
Yeah.
have on the agenda to discuss this evening?
I mean, there are a couple of challenges to that. I mean, the state statute 12-757 dictates that when you provide notice, the statutory notice on a rezoning, which both the rezoning and the CUP application under our ordinances qualify for this procedure, that you have to provide a legal description of the property considered to be zoned, or in this case rezoned. In this circumstance, the applicant provided a legal description for a property to be rezoned now, and so that was the notice that was published. That was the notice that would have gone to the surrounding property owners within 200 feet of the property, and then the purpose of that is to allow anyone to come to the public hearing, which is the statutory hearing conducted by the Planning Commission. I would be, my recommendation, and really this is for the applicant's benefit more than anyone, because I think you would have a procedural defect if we rezoned something less than was published and that was provided in the notice in different geographic boundaries. My recommendation is that it go back to the Planning Commission, renoticed, and then you could have the public hearing with the proper legal description, and that way there wouldn't be any question as to any procedural defect for it to come up here.
So what kind of delay are we talking about if that were to happen? Are we talking 2 months?
The statutory time frame, hold on a second, to get the notices out, I believe, is, 20 days before the hearing to all owners of record, so that you have to get the notice to the property owners within 200 feet 20 days before the hearing. Then you have the publication deadlines, and I'm not sure, Jeannie or Brian, you might be able to shed some light on how much lead time you have to give on the publication. I think it just has to be published before the hearing.
Yeah, I think that's probably have to give at least 14 or 21 days notice in the paper.
So we wouldn't be looking at the June meeting then, we'd be looking at the July meeting.
We might be able to hit the June 23rd, I think it's June 23rd is our next meeting. I have the calendar in front of me.
Actually, our next meeting after this is gonna be the 15th. I think the 23rd we have scheduled for.
This is planning.
Well, he's talking about
Planning
Planning
commission, yeah,
commission.
planning commission.
So we would see it again in July.
So we could see it first meeting in July.
June 23rd is our next planning commission meeting. If those are the dates, and we got a new legal description ASAP, we could probably get the June 23rd meeting. Then we'd come back to council the first meeting in July.
I had a
Or,
question.
actually, it might be the second meeting in July because there would be a petition on the rezoning.
Say that again.
There's a petition, a timeframe associated with rezoning.
Oh, right, yeah, so after the public hearing, you have to wait 14 days before you come back to council to allow for protest petitions to be filed.
So I think the earliest you could probably hear is the second meeting in July.
I have a question. If the property is zoned A, say we go against the planning commission in it, and we go ahead with the rezoning, would we be able to control it with the conditional use permit, per their request? I mean, go ahead and zone it the way they're asking for, and then.
Yeah.
And then restrict the CUP to the.
I think you could. You could do that and basically, approve the rezoning for the entirety of the parcel to agriculture, and then, as a stipulation to the CUP that was being approved, dictate that, whatever you wanna say, no drilling operations on whatever the proposed legal description would be for those commercial parcels.
We'd have it in their requirement to resubmit a legal description that deleted those two parcels they brought up.
Okay.
Yeah, the challenge would then be if you were looking to foster development on that commercial corner, then instead of it being kind of a turnkey, just site plan, ready to roll, they'd have to come back and rezone.
Yeah.
And I understand the other uses that can go on the agricultural zoning district.
Well, here's my question, it's really more for the applicants.
Which would they prefer?
And, exactly, I've gotta get their concerns on this. If we were to remand to the planning commission for their 23rd meeting on, the 23rd of June, and come back to the council for the second meeting in July, would that significantly, put the applicants at any kind of, hardship or anything like that? Or would they rather have action this evening on the entirety of the parcel?
I can't speak to hardship without having a conference with my client, but most certainly the applicant would rather have action this evening. In response to the notice provisions, I have a little bit of an advantage in that I knew this was a unique question, so I researched it before I came on this specific issue, and that's why I put it on this slide before. But 12-757, when talking about notice, says that such notice shall be sufficient for amendments to zoning regulations which affect only a portion of the land described in the notice, or which give all or any part of the land described in the zoning classification a lesser change than set forth in the notice. So the statute says that the notice is okay, and I'm comfortable with that. The Zimmern case stood for the proposition, in essence, when you look at 12-757, it says that the city council has three options, as your staff laid out before. You can approve by 2/3 vote if there's a recommendation for denial. You can remand to the planning commission, or you can accept the recommendation. In the Zimmerman case, the issue was if you accept only a portion of the recommendation or modify that, you have to first remand. And the citation that I had up there from Zimmerman decided that no, if you have 2/3, you can amend. But if you don't have 2/3, then you have to remand, and it has to come up, at which time it can be approved by a simple majority rather than 3/3. Or, I'm sorry, 2/3.
And the amendment can only take away from the zoning, you can't add to it.
It can only be for a portion of the property
Correct.
described or a lesser change than asked for.
What the statute says is such notice is sufficient to permit the planning commission to recommend amendments to zoning regulations, which affect only a portion of the land described in the notice. So it's talking about when it comes up to the planning commission with the public hearing, then the planning commission can recommend a smaller portion. It does not speak to the governing body's ability to do that when you've got a planning commission recommendation as to the entirety of the property. And I think the purpose of that is you've got the public hearing that's being conducted by the planning commission, and you don't have the requisite public hearing when it comes up to the governing body here. So you could send it back to the planning commission, and they could come back with a recommendation with, based upon the less than the entirety. But my interpretation of the statute, when they say planning commission, that has meaning. It doesn't say planning commission or governing body.
So I guess I have a question, and it kind of goes to what Lee was saying. If I think I heard that you were going to pull back part of this mainly as a show of good faith to the city, and not necessarily because you wanted to. And so it was published for the planning commission as the entire parcel, no public comment against it. If you're doing that because you think for one reason or another it's going to help get this passed, I guess my question is your preference to have it exactly as it is and rezone all of the property? Mr. Tom, I mean,
to put you on the spot, Joel, but I don't know what your preference is.
Yes, that would be my preference, but it was something that I felt like would be important to the city to have that corner of the property that was zoned for commercial, to where it would not impede that kind of development, either by our actions on the property, by having wells there. It was, in my opinion, good faith effort to give something to the city that I felt would be important to you guys.
Thank you for that.
The Zimmerman case, you mentioned the Zimmerman case. Do you happen to have any information on that?
Yeah, I have copies of the Zimmerman case. I have copies of 12-757 and also the Manley case, which is the authority relied upon in Zimmerman. If it would be helpful or appropriate, I have those copies that I could provide to anybody. But yeah, the Zimmerman case is significant in that was the issue there. You have this language which applies to the Planning Commission. So the Zimmerman case was, can you amend with a 2/3 vote, or does it have to be remanded first? And to give you the history of 12-757, before the 2/3 rule came about, the rule was if you wanted to override the Planning Commission, it has to be remanded, and then it came back, and then you could approve with a simple majority, no 2/3 requirement. The statute was amended to allow the city council to override the Planning Commission by a 2/3 supermajority. In the Zimmerman case, they ruled on, the question was, does that just apply to a straight approval, or does that also apply to an amendment? And the Zimmerman case stood for the proposition that you could also amend, but you needed that same supermajority being 2/3 as you would to override.
I'd be happy to take a look at it.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it would be good for all of us to have at least the executive summary of the Zimmerman case to show the finding. Do you happen to have that?
I do.
I know we're playing dueling attorneys here, my apologies.
But I guess I'm going back to, I mean, I get, if we're willing to rezone part of the property, and I guess, yeah, I don't understand why this is even relevant. I mean,
Well,
as far as if we're either willing to do it or we're not, and if we can control some through a special use permit and we're okay with that, why are we even debating all of this?
My thoughts exactly. I mean, here it is, we've got the owner who says, hey, I want to do this. We just move on, get it done, and then move on to the next thing.
Well,
And then they can reapply for something later.
Let me just point out real quick that we've got an attorney at the podium, and we've got an attorney at the dais.
Mhm.
And more importantly than us seeing the information from the Zimmerman case is that our city attorney sees it because
That's
I
fine.
don't think that he's.
That's fine.
He's familiar with it. I'm wondering if maybe we ought to take a short recess.
5 minutes?
Take a
Can I ask
bathroom
one
break,
quick question,
something like
though?
that, and-
Real quick question?
Sure.
You mentioned the owner would guarantee the plugging of the wells?
Correct.
In what manner? I mean, handshake?
No, in meaning that, not only is the owner is Thomas Investments LP, which is, in Kansas, you have to have an operator's license to operate oil wells. So the operator is ST Petroleum because they have that operator's license. And we did not want there to be any appearance that we're trying to shield the owner of the real estate from liability. So Thomas Investments is willing to guarantee the plugging of these wells. They have this 195 acres of property, that in essence stands behind them. You're not looking at a shell corporation that's guaranteeing plugging with no assets. They have assets that far exceed the cost of plugging.
I used to be in the drilling field, and I can speak to it too. For Kansas, every well that's drilled has to be plugged before it can't, in the state of Kansas, you can't walk away. Someone will have to come back and plug that well.
Yeah, there's a liability bond that has to be posted too on that.
There's a bond.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Okay.
he's, as the landowner, if somebody comes in and buys that property and he doesn't plug it, he's
Yeah.
personally liable. There's nobody in between there.
Well, sure, and I understand, I'm just saying, to protect us from worst case scenario, if, the market crash, lost money, oh, well, I can't handle it, and walk away.
Yeah,
I mean, it's bonded, there's money up front, or,
Yeah,
okay, that's all.
Yeah, ST Petroleum has what they call financial assurance with the Kansas Corporation Commission. They're required to be bonded. Your city ordinances also require bonding that ST Petroleum will go through when they get the actual permits. What the applicant is saying is, in addition to those things, the applicant has property here that may be worth close to $3 million, plugging liability of $100,000 to $150,000. So he's saying, here's a company that has this $3 million asset, and I'm willing to stand behind it in addition to all these bonds. You'll take care of it through both entities.
What's the length of time before the wells, break even? Let's speak to solvency.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Estimated, at current oil prices is a 3-year payback. That is an estimate if all of the wells were drilled, on the single, as of today. And an estimate as to what the price is at that time.
And that estimate's based on, the current, curtailed drilling operation, or was that an estimate based on the entire?
No, you're correct. I didn't think, these numbers I had gotten to present to the planning commission, and this was based on the entire project. We will lose between 4 and 6 producers by removing 25 acres. I could ask.
Percentage-wise, what are you looking at?
I believe there were 30, I want to say there were 36 total producers. If you lost 4, if you lost 4 of those, you're looking at 32. I don't know what the percentage of that is, but you're still going to get the majority of what's there.
I would make a motion for a 5-minute recess so they could review the case law on this.
Second.
Motion, Shute, second, Moore, that we recess for 5 minutes. All in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no abstentions. Stand in recess.